Hello everyone, it's Nina and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we are going to be doing the Where My Lore Started book tag. This tag was originally created by Carrie Ken Reed, but it's kind of based on a larger trend that was going around on Bookstagram a couple months ago where people would post different photos of books and media they were really into when they were younger, kind of going through the different stages as they were growing up. And I thought this was a really cute trend and one that I thought about participating in myself. So when I saw that a kind of like video book tag version of this trend had been created, I thought it would be a great opportunity to go down memory lane, and I can kind of tell you about all of the like fandoms and books I was really into when I was younger. So that is a plan for today. So with this intro out of the way, let's get right on into it. The first question is, what is the first book you remember reading by yourself? I can't distinctly remember the very first book I read. I do have a pretty pivotal memory of when I was a kid being in my mom's office and reading like the Dr. Seuss books. I think probably around the same time I was also very into Corduroy and the Velveteen Rabbit. And then I remember the first like maybe larger series of books that I read in like elementary school was the American Girl doll books. I distinctly remember reading Samantha Saves the Day, and then my best friend in elementary school owned all of the Felicity books, so I read all of those during like free time reading period in school. Also, I have to mention, because it cannot be understated that in being a younger millennial, I was like completely subjected to Harry Potter fever. You really couldn't like turn around without being assaulted by Harry Potter merch in the early 2000s. So yes, I did own a Scabbers plastic rat toy. I did my Pottermore house quiz. I'm a Gryffindor. And low-key am kind of proud to not be a Ravenclaw like all you insufferable bitches. Am I proud of all of that now? No. I don't fault anyone who's still like very nostalgic for it now. But like at the same time, I think you should like just play your Sorcerer's Stone computer game for Windows Vista and not spend any money on the franchise anymore. The next question is, what is the character you most identified with in elementary school? I honestly can't really remember. I really want to say Samantha, American Girl. The way I wanted to be a like Victorian/Edwardian child, truly like unparalleled. But honestly, I feel like in elementary school, that was my time really spent in playing like Sonic Adventure 2, watching Yu-Gi-Oh! So I wasn't really a big reader then. I was much more of like a writer where I would like kind of write, I guess you would consider it fanfic, just like stories with characters from series I really liked, as well as like integrating like my friends in the stories as well, plus some of my own original characters. I feel like I just did a lot of more like creating versus like consuming written work when I was a kid. Next question is, what was your elementary school comfort book? For me, this was the A to Z Mysteries series. I fucking loved these. I remember like reading them as they were coming out. Like the full alphabet wasn't out when I was reading them as a kid. And I was like so stressed to eventually get to Z and then there wouldn't be any more. Also, the character Ruth Rose, her mind though, you can kind of track it on the covers, but every single book, she has like a different all color coordinated one color outfit. Honestly, such a style icon and probably honestly an influence to my own personal style today. The next question was, where or what was your safe space as a kid? I feel like as a kid, I was very much a like forced tomboy. This is gonna sound really strange, but basically I thought I couldn't be pretty, so instead I sort of made myself and dress in like more loose-fitting boys' clothes. I feel like I've always liked boy things like video games. I loved Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Sonic. I also played Yu-Gi-Oh, but very badly. I also have a younger brother, and I think in like classic patriarchal society, it's easy for the like boy thing to become the default. So I kind of would like play pretend and stuff with things he liked, which luckily he also really liked Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and Sonic. If you want some insanely deep Nina family lore, my family nickname for my younger brother is Chow, based on the Chow from Sonic. And my entire family still calls him that, and he's like 26. So in terms of like safe spaces, okay, I don't want to say something and have this come out as like weirdly gender essentialist, because that is, I think, a huge problem. But I feel like probably a lot of other like, not like other girls, nerd girls that grew up before the internet was super common, probably experienced something similar to this. In that like young boys and teen boys don't really want to talk about the emotional depth or like do character analysis for series they really like at that age. At least from like my childhood experience, they tend to be much more like stats focused. So when I wanted to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, I wanted to talk about like the characters' emotions and their arcs, and quite frankly like which characters I was going to be attracted to as like a child that was about to experience puberty. And the boys were instead like memorizing their stats and like signature battle moves. And I feel like to get around that, I would have to go to places like LiveJournal and eventually like fanfiction.net to get contact and like analysis that I really wanted that I couldn't get in my IRL life. So that's kind of like part one, and I guess in general, the safe space I eventually cultivated grew to be Tumblr. The thing is, I didn't really get a Tumblr until I was in my sophomore year of high school, which seems like kind of late. But before that, like I said, I was on like LiveJournal, as well as DeviantArt and other like smaller forum sites dedicated to specific topics, mostly Yu-Gi-Oh! The next question is, how has your taste in books changed since childhood? This question feels like a read, because the way my taste is like exactly the same. It's actually kind of embarrassing how much my taste is the same. Like all my favorite characters, all the tropes I really liked are like basically the same thing in different fonts. I love fantasy, I love historical stuff, specifically like turn of the century, Edwardian era, Victorian era, plus like some medieval stuff. I've always loved books that focus on gay characters. I feel like there definitely was a turning point where I like first of all realized like what gay people were. And then two, when I realized that gay stories really resonated with who I was. Next question is, did you feel inspired to read by your school? Or how did your upbringing encourage reading? I feel like I did not enjoy reading in school for the most part. And to be honest, I don't really know why. I do feel like there was a little bit of a eternal struggle in that reading never felt like relevant to my life. And that the messages and kind of like synergy between classes wasn't always there. So it was hard to really understand why we're reading the specific pieces of work at that particular time. I do remember for the like summer reading list between middle school to high school, I thought to myself, I'm only going to read the nonfiction because that's what's important. Which is such a like productivity bro, hustle culture, stupid take that I don't agree with at all now. And also like, bitch, it's summer reading. Like who really actually cares? I do remember in elementary school, there was like a school-long reading challenge where I think if you read up to like a certain threshold, you would get this like golden apple ornament. And my family still has a lot of those from my childhood, so I must have been reading a lot. But I don't really feel like reader was like the main thing I did in elementary school. And in terms of my upbringing, I do have parents that both enjoy reading. My dad has a like fuck ton of books, so I was always around books as a kid. Although our tastes do divulge quite a bit. My dad is a big music nerd, so pretty much every book he has is a nonfiction book about a different like music time period or specific artist. And not really books that I necessarily was like picking up and reading a lot when I was younger. Next question is, what is a book that you have wanted to return to lately? Similarly to how I was a child during the like Harry Potter craze, I was also a teen girl during the Twilight era. And I think I did try to read the first one because all my friends were reading it. However, because I was also in my like not like other girls phase, as an alternative, I was like, I'm gonna read some real vampire books. So which is why I read the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice. And I still love them and want to read more of that series. I also started reading the Strain series by Guillermo del Toro. And I really want to reread that, as well as a lot of the Vampire Hunter D books. Just kind of all of the vampire books I was really into in that time period. There also were definitely a couple series I feel like I completely missed the boat on that I've wanted to go back and read now. Obviously, I've been making my way through the Percy Jackson like extended universe since I just read all of the original series in 2024. I definitely want to read more of Heroes of Olympus and maybe get into the other books in the like general Percy Jackson universe. Another series I haven't read, but I've really been interested in lately is Inkheart. I remember really liking the movie when I was younger, which I think is a movie adaptation that a lot of book fans really don't like, but I am interested in seeing if I would like the book versions at all. I'm pretty sure also this series was originally just 3 books, but in like the last year or two, they ended up coming out with a 4th one or something. So yeah, definitely a kind of like middle grade to YA series that I missed out on when I was younger that I honestly would be interested in checking out now as an adult. Speaking about YA series, let's talk about my favorite or formative YA series that I read. The first one I can think of kind of on, again, the middle grade to YA split was the Click books. I distinctly remember reading some of these during the summer break. Another series that I really loved in like kind of late middle school to early high school was the Keys to the Kingdom series by Garth Nix. I love my man Garth Nix. If you maybe know from watching other videos on this channel, I'm a huge fan of the Old Kingdom Abhorsen series, which is Garth Nix's kind of like older YA series. But I actually found out about him through the Keys to the Kingdom series because of, I think a guy in my class was reading the first one. I thought it looked really interesting. And it is one of those like middle grade to YA series, which I also distinctly remember reading over summer break. And in high school, I finally did start reading more gay contemporary YA books. And to be honest, there probably were only like 3 in existence back then. At least that were readily available at my library. I was a huge fan of the Rainbow Road series, and honestly, I'm pretty sure I owned all of these books, but I swear I got rid of them sometime probably in like late high school to college, and I don't know why I did that, because to be honest, I would honestly want to revisit this series as well. Just such a time capsule for what it was like to be gay in the early 2000s. For this question, I feel like it's also the place where when I saw people talk on Instagram about their lore, I was like, I can't do this trend, because when I think back on my formulative high school lore and the books that I was reading in high school, it's all very bad, problematic yaoi that I probably should have not been reading at that age. If it was shrink wrapped at Borders, I was reading it. A lot of this, honestly, I don't know if I would go back and read again, maybe a little bit for nostalgia. Although we did last year in 2024 re-watch all of Gravitation, and it's so bad but also so good that I am kind of like interested maybe in reading more of the manga. Probably one of the lesser problematic of the problematic yaoi series that I was reading. Okay, moving on to the next question, we have a book that you had to read for school but you loved. The first one that comes to mind is The Great Gatsby. I'm pretty sure I read this in sophomore year English class. Also, a book I think about a shockingly large number of times is a book I read in elementary school, which was called The Sign of the Beaver. Did you guys read this in school? Do you know what I'm talking about? Going back to high school, I feel like my senior year English class was low-key unparalleled. It was Oedipus Rex, Macbeth and Shakespeare's Sonnets, Frankenstein, Lord of the Flies, Brave New World, and No Exit. Low-key all bangers. Okay, next question is, what is your weirdest favorite book? I'm assuming weirdest favorite book as a kid. And this is another one where I don't necessarily know if I have one. I feel like in terms of like obscure weird books, it wasn't really books that I was reading a ton that were outside of the norm. It was most on my experience in middle school getting into reading fanfics for the first time. That is my like obscure deep lore. Besides what I mentioned before, the fanfics I was writing, which was the like Sonic OC fanfics from elementary school. First fanfic I read probably in late middle school to early high school was a Jaden x Johan fanfic from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Still a great ship. One of my favorite ships of all time, honestly. Next question is, if your 13-year-old self could live in any fictional world, what would it be? And is it something different than what you would choose for yourself now? Okay, I don't know if this necessarily counts as reading, but when I think of like a fictional world that I want to live in, it's always the I Spy books, as well as like the I Spy computer games, specifically the pirate one. The I Spy pirate one has such intense like small town coastal Maine vibes, and I know that Maine is like a real place, but the fantasy of living in the small town of Pirates Cove, having both like these small town vibes, the big beautiful lighthouse by the shore, and having a town that's like full of secret pirate treasure. Like truly, can I have that now? I think in a past life, if I lived in another time period, I would be a lighthouse keeper. I love lighthouses. I think they're so cool and so beautiful. I watched the Robert Eggers movie, The Lighthouse, and I was like, rip to you, but I'm different. If that was me, I would simply not go insane. Okay, the next question is, what is a newly released book you wish you had when you were younger? I think I've said this before in other videos, but I feel like the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy by Stephanie Garber is so like I am a teen girl coded, despite the fact that I did not read it as a teenager. I don't know if it's a series I necessarily would have loved as a teenager, but reading it now, it transports me back to that teenage girl mindset. Another book that I feel like gives me kind of similar vibes in that I feel like teen girls would really enjoy it is the Of Jade and Dragons series by Amber Chen. Also, these definitely were out when I was a teen, but there obviously are still new ones being released today. But I completely missed the entire teen dystopian craze because, again, I was too busy reading all my problematic yaoi, and I really wished I had read The Hunger Games in their prime. I'm glad that now, as an adult, I have had the opportunity to read all of those books, as well as the 2 prequels that have come out since, like, the peak of their popularity. I also feel like I was reading so much problematic yaoi, why didn't I read more, like, actual gay romance novels? Like, I feel like I might have tried to read some of them, but there weren't any that I felt comfortable buying, which seems wrong because I clearly had no shame buying the, like, shrink-wrapped yaoi at Borders, or just in general, like more YA queer contemporary books. Like I said before, I feel like there were like 3 that were out when I was in middle school and high school. Annie on My Mind, Boy Meets Boy, and the Rainbow Road series. Like there probably were more, but those are the ones that I was able to find easily through my like small suburban library. And I feel like all of the like queer YA contemporary that's come out now is really good, and I do wish that I had more of that when I was younger. I definitely have made a point to read more of it as an adult. Books like Imogen, obviously, Felix Ever After, Darius the Great is Not Okay. Books in that like coming of age, YA, queer contemporary genre. I'm glad that there's so many more that are out now. But yeah, definitely something I wish I had when I was younger. Okay, those were all the questions that were in the tag. I did want to add one more because I would love to see people's replies to this. But like, who was your first book boyfriend or book girlfriend? I guess I'm just kind of like a little nosy with this question because I don't really feel like I have an answer for myself. As I said before, with my obsession with Yu-Gi-Oh! In elementary school, I can tell you who my first anime boyfriend was. It was Bakura. He's so cute. Specifically Ryo Bakura. I don't actually like Yami Bakura very much, but this boy, adorable. Love him so much. Still love him to this day. And yeah, that is going to be it for this tag. I feel like this video was a little bit more chaotic than my videos usually go, but in talking with this kind of lore, I feel like it makes a lot more sense for me to be a little bit more vulnerable and talk about my interests. And I find this kind of topic very, very interesting. I love hearing about what people are super nostalgic for, what was like the most formative pieces of media that they got into when they were younger. Because again, I feel like your tastes don't necessarily fully change even as you get older. A lot of the stuff I like now is the stuff I liked when I was younger, or it's very similar to the things I liked when I was younger, but just like in a different font. And I just feel like it's really interesting to see how those like formative years of our lives when we're younger and the media that we consume then does kind of impact us in how our tastes develop over time as adults. So it'd be really interesting to hear about all of your like blorbos, anime, book, or otherwise, in the comments down below, as well as just like other books and series they were really into as a kid. But that's going to be it for me today. If you guys enjoyed this video, consider liking, commenting, or subscribing if you aren't already. I'm really interested in seeing any of your comments down below related to this topic. You can also consider following me on the Storygraph if you'd like to see my reading updates in real time, or on my Bookstagram, which is linked in the description. Maybe after doing this video, I will actually make a Where My Lore Started Bookstagram post as well. But that is going to be it for me today. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!